Yes, it's been a while, but we are finally back on the GT6. So why did I stop working on it? Well, the truth is, like most car guys, I ended up buying one project after another, after another, after another. We got the Karmann gear, we got the split screen, I got the R-Bath, I had the Delica L300, I had the Crafter long wheelbase camper van that I never finished. The list goes on, and I'm sure you can relate. And like most projects you forget about, you eventually just become blind to them. I mean, I literally walk past this car every single day, and I've been doing that for the last year and a half. And I thought it was about time, rather than waiting for that motivation, we actually started doing some stuff. So let's make a list. So I actually jumped on this last night, and when I was lifting it up in the air, I noticed there was a little bit of a wobble on the steering, and the problem was the tie rod ends. Well, one, they were loose, but they also looked like they were kind of split on the rubbers. So we've gone and ordered some new tie rod ends, and they should be arriving in the next couple of days. And whilst I was down here, I also noticed that we hadn't fixed the brakes. Remember, when you come back to a project after this amount of time, you've really actually got to walk around and see if you can remember half the shit you forgot to finish off on the previous time you were there. This cap that we actually 3D printed has a bit too much of a lip on it, so that needs to be cut down so it fits on the wheel, but I'm really happy with those. They came out great, but job to do. Another job is finishing off the front brakes. So if you remember from before, we moved the servo assist, that's been moved to where the battery was. We've done all new brake lines, so I need to pressure test those at some point. And we've also fitted these lovely Goodrich brake hoses that are on the end. Now, the only thing we're missing is the little L bracket to go on here, so we can get that done. We've got the brakes to do, we've got the steering rod ends to do. On the front, you might be noticing there is something missing, which is the bonnet, and that is in Paisley, and it has been repainted for us. We took the bonnet to get sprayed because there was a leak in the garage it was kept in, and basically for 40 years there was this tiny little drip, and it kind of just ruined the top of the bonnet, but it was completely solid still. Shipped that way a year ago, it's been resprayed, and we need to get it back. So as soon as I've got a car trailer, if you know anyone that can lend me one, I can drive to Glasgow, pick that up, and a couple of other bits for some of the other cars that I've got sitting there waiting to get as well. We have literally just ordered the correct colour, and I'm praying, because this sat in a garage for literally its whole life, there is not going to be too much colour bleeding, bleaching, whatever you want to call it. And when we get the bonnet on here, it looks pretty good, but hopefully get that done in the next week or so. Another thing I want to look at doing is figuring out these wires, because these do come all the way down to the front, and they supply all your readings for your water temperature, your lights, everything on the front of the car. And previously this was in an aluminium side that sat on here. Now, I'm thinking I'm going to get rid of that, but I'm going to try and make some sort of bracket that comes off here that looks pretty good and comes down to the front. If you've got any ideas, or how it originally should have gone, that would be good to know. I don't know if it went through maybe one of the chassis legs, but all this wiring also needs to be sorted out. So another thing that we've got to do is get under here and finish off this fitment of the stainless steel exhaust. Been sat in my garage for over a year. We did the header, that's all fitted, but I just need to slide this into place, figure out where the new hangers are going to go, and also remember where I put them, because they're in storage somewhere. Internally, we've got to get these seats fixed to the car, so I need to teach myself how to weld, make some bases for those. I've also got to figure out how the dash goes back together and trace all the wiring in here, because there is so much extra wiring that I have absolutely no idea what it does. The guy that owned this previously to me was an engineer, and you can tell when you go through his paperwork, which is the best part of 30 years old, it is so intricate in the way that he's put everything together. And there's a lot of upgrades on this car. I say upgrades, but we're talking 30 to 35-year-old upgrades. So maybe strip a few of those out. This dash isn't looking too healthy, but things like that can wait until we've got the car up and running. One thing I am quite concerned about is the play in this steering wheel. So before the wheels turn, you've probably got about 1 inch to 1.5 inches. So we're going to get down there in the footwell, have a little look at that. But other than that, I think for the time being, we could really just tidy this up, get it back out that bloody window and on the road for a little bit of a test drive. So the first thing we're going to do today is take this aluminium and create a couple of brackets for those brakes. They should look rather tasty once they're cut, drilled and polished. Let's do it. Boom. That's one. Let's get the other done. Don't know if it's going to be the right size, but we'll just figure it out. Next thing is get on the old drill and get some holes in there. It is amazing how the littlest thing can take a bit of time, but the more you practice, the faster I'm getting anyway. So that's one of the L brackets. We're just going to do the second one, but looking pretty good at the moment. Well happy with that. Get that in there, get that under there like that, and then we can use my leg as an extra. Right, cool. It's got to go a bit further, but we'll get that on. Front brake's done. First job of the year done. Boom. So that's our bracket in there. You can see that sits quite nicely. If I show you from above, you can see how the brake line curls round, comes into the top on this side, and then hooks up on that side. And then all we've done is just make sure that we've got enough clearance. Obviously, this isn't going to turn that far around, but if for any reason it did, it's fine. And we are good. That's all looking fantastic. Again, if you spot anything I'm doing wrong, let me know, because I am just figuring this out whilst I go along, and I don't pretend to be an expert at all. Before we strip the old radiator and go through everything on the car with the cooling system, I'm going to try and flush out anything that's currently in the system. My thinking behind this is if I fit a brand new, very expensive aluminium radiator with a load of shit floating through the cooling system, as soon as the car started up, it's going to clog up and that'll be the end of that. Whereas if I run this with my hose pipes here, I'm going to run it with the car off. Again, let me know if I'm doing this right or wrong, but because the car's off, we're going to have water pumping through the car. So in effect, what would be happening with the water pump doesn't need to be happening because we're running water the whole time. We've got a bucket which it's going to drain into for the time being, and the only reason I'm doing that is to see what shit comes out of this system, and I want to run it till it's clear. Once it's running clear, I'll let the tap run for another 5-10 minutes through the system, probably as high pressure as I can. Once I've done that, I'll stop it and we'll get this radiator changed. We're on. Can you hear that? That's the system filling up. And whilst we're doing this, it's also a great time, there we go, check for leaks. So there's the water running out, and you can see that there's quite a bit of shit up that end, but it's more just kind of, I'd say almost like a tiny bit of residue oil. I was expecting more maybe rust or something in the system. I'd say that was pretty good news all round. We've got leaks on the pipes, so they can be fixed, but it looks like the radiator's leaking as well, so the radiator is broken. But cool. We know it's better to happen in here than it is heading down the road at 60 or 70 with the petrol engine that's overheating. That's never going to end in good news, is it? Right, let's get this fixed. New radiator time, and it's almost identical to the one that is already on the car. One big difference in terms of the actual build is that it's made of aluminium. A couple of benefits that jump out straight away. One, lighter weight, and two, it's a really good distributor of heat. So on a car that is known for overheating, anything that can help us bring that temperature down is going to be a good thing. Well, good morning. And last night didn't go quite as smoothly as I thought it would. I honestly thought this was going to be a bolt-on part, but apparently aftermarket doesn't fit quite as well as original. If my original one wasn't pissing out water, I would be putting it back on for the time being, but it is. So we need to deal with the issues that this radiator has thrown up. Firstly, the mount points. So down here, they're just nowhere near where they should be. It's absolutely mental. So we're going to get those changed, get a new plate welded on the bottom. And then another thing that's really bad is this. So if you look at the angle of that hose versus the angle of this, it just doesn't fit well. So I'm going to look to see if I can get this cut and remounted. And hopefully then that'll work as well. But another thing of concern, and maybe you guys can tell me about this, but these radiators actually have a electric fan mounted on the back rather than on the front like my old one did. And it is very, very close to that bottom engine pulley. How much room should I leave? Be interested to hear your thoughts on that. Anyway, we're going to take this down to the fabricators in town and yeah, then figure out what the next thing on the list is to do. That is that down at the fabricators. They're going to TIG weld it for me, but they have said it is going to take, well, sometime this week. They can't get straight on it because obviously they've got other jobs to do. However, a package has arrived and I just got a notification on my email saying that the new tie rods ends have arrived. So what I'm going to aim to do for the rest of the day is get the rest of the suspension put together, have a look at the push-through center caps that I 3D printed because I think there was a bit of play when they were sitting behind the wheel. So I might need to adjust those, but yeah, let's jump on the tie rods and get those fitted. Right, let's just have a little look at the new tie rod ends versus the old ones. One thing I've been trying to do with all of the parts that I upgrade, if I can get ones that I can grease rather than ones without the nipples, I'm going for those. And you can I'll just show you the old one versus the new one. There's a tiny bit more length in it, maybe a couple of mil. So the tracking might need to be changed when we get the new ones on. But other than that, they look pretty spot on. Looking forward to getting these on. Let's do it. Happy days, happy days. There is a bit of play in the steering that I think is still going to be there even when we've got this sorted out. So I'm interested to see how much play we get rid of. One little problem that we've run into is, let me just bring you in here. So here's our new tie rod end. This is the screw that's meant to be adjustable, and then there should be some thread on here, but unfortunately, because someone decided to paint this with Rust-Oleum, it's not going to give me the movement that I need on there, which is a bit annoying. So what I'm thinking is maybe spray that with a little bit of paint stripper, see if that will remove some of it and give us some of that playback, because what's happening is the other wheel at the moment is facing directly forwards and this one has a tiny bit of toe out, I think that's what you call it. So to bring that straight with the other one, I think is what we need to do. Otherwise, both of our wheels end up kind of both pointing out a little bit, which is not ideal. So yeah, a bit of paint stripper, see if we can sort that out, and then that should give us the adjustment back that we need. We have applied some paint stripper, and that's actually been pretty good. If I get in here quick, you can see this build-up of old paint on here, which is all coming off. And what we've been able to do is, let me see if I can get a little bit more, probably the wrong lens, but yeah. So this nut, we've just been moving backwards and forwards, and we've now got some good movement on that. So, yeah, plan is now, I totally get this is not the best way to do it, but for now, just to get wheels back on, we'll get our discs both pointing straight and take it from there. But that should be at least a good starting point. But more lessons learned and another thing I know how to do, so happy days. That's all built back up, but the thing is on this side, if someone knows what I might be missing, there is play, and it's play on the fixture for the wheel. So I don't know if I've got a bearing in there that I need to work on, but yeah, something is not right, and it's definitely not the tie rod end because that's not moving with it. So yeah, that's something I need to figure out. We are moving forwards. Got the wheels on. Now the only thing is, on this side, there is still play there. The other wheel, no issues on that side, but I don't know if my bearings need redoing or I need to go through how I built the axle back up. I might have done something wrong, could have done, but usually that would be an indicator of bad bearings, but I'm fairly sure I put new bearings in, so I need to check that. Anyway, everything's back on, going to drop the car down and tighten up the tie rod ends, and then that is another job done. Tracking has kind of been eyeballed for now, but it's enough to get it going, because right now I just want the car running on the road. I want to be able to check all the systems on it, and the way that we do that is just get it back into one piece. So get it down, get that done, and then there is play in the steering wheel. So I'm going to check the knuckle, which is kind of around where your knees would be when you sit in the car, and perhaps order a new ignition, because I think I ordered the wrong one last time. But yeah, we're getting there. Next issue, let's jump in here. There is, let me just go wide. That is almost all play. So need to figure out what's going on. Basically, under there somewhere is a little, I notice there's like a little lock on the steering rod, and it might just be loose. So we'll try that first. I've got a feeling someone might have tried loosening something off when they lost the keys for this. So yeah, lost the keys, tried to take out the steering column, couldn't do that, but didn't bother tightening it up. So yeah, that's the first thing to check. Showing you this little diagram that I've got here, but basically what had happened is the inner steering column and the upper inner steering column are linked together with a little part which is number 12 on this diagram, and that had been loosened off, and I still think that's because they were trying to get this apart so they could move the car, and they basically failed to. But tighten that up, and we now have no play in our steering. So happy days. Right, I'm going to call that an absolute win for this video. So we stripped off the old radiator that was leaking. We've flushed the system out. We've got the new radiator at the fabricators at the moment, and that will basically be coming back and adjusted so we can get it straight on. We've also got the new tie rod ends on there, which we can now grease if we ever need to. We've also adjusted the toe in, toe out on the steering. That is something we'll have to come back to once the car's actually on the road, but for now, I'm happy with that. What else have we done? Oh yeah, play in the steering. We've fixed that, so that's another thing off the list. What are we going to do next? Well, we'll be looking at bases for the seats so they can get secured. Maybe look at some new seat belts as well. I think with it being a two-seater, I wouldn't mind getting some race harnesses. Tell me what you think. I'm thinking some tasty red ones with that black interior that will look pretty good. But yeah, happy days. If you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you next time. Bye, guys.